Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to another episode of Way of the Underhive. This is a series that is dedicated to showing brand new players to Necromunda exactly how to play the game, talk about the gangs, talk about the game mechanics, and on this series specifically, we will be talking about guild alliances in your campaigns of Necromunda. So we'll be going through each of the different merchant gangs, guilds, rather one at a time. We'll talk about what kind of benefits and drawbacks they bring to your gang. We will discuss their entourages, and we'll also talk about the fighters that make up those entourages as well. And then finally, we will give you our overall conclusion of that guild alliance. And on today's episode of the Merchant Guilds, we will be talking about the Iron Guild, also known as Necromunda. These are the merchants that are responsible for trading pretty much all the raw materials on Necromunda, and in fact, that kind of gives you the idea of where the connection between Necromunda and Necromunda comes from, which are the natural resources. So we will talk about its impact in both positively as well as negatively in your campaign. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the positive impact on campaign play with taking a guild alliance. First of all, you have what's known as the band apart rule, which means that you will get all the benefits of taking additional fighters for your gang, but without taking any of the negative effects as well. So for example, if this guild's fighters entourage starts taking losses, those losses do not negatively impact against your own losses for terms of battle tests. So that's one of the nice things about them. Also, they have bodyguards. The bodyguards, as well as the leader of the guild alliances, are actually pretty good. They all have pretty good weapons as well as equipment, and more often than not, it's those entourages that you're taking these guild alliances for. And speaking of that, it's also a really good way to balance out numbers in this scenario as well. The nice thing about taking on a guild alliance is that whatever fighters they send to your gang, they do not take up any crew slots whatsoever. So bringing experienced fighters with better equipment as well as better weapons and stuff can really help you out without really impacting your crews too badly. So for example, if you're playing a scenario that you can only take a maximum of 10 fighters, well, guess what? The entourage that you get from your guild alliance doesn't count towards those 10 fighters, which makes it really nice. So there are some negative impacts of actually taking a guild alliance, and one of them of course regards around your outlaw status. If you're playing a campaign where outlaw status is a thing, if you become an outlaw, you cannot take any of the merchant guilds for an allied. But it's not the end of the world that should happen, because now with noble house alliances as well as criminal alliances, you could be an outlaw and still get some really good alliances with different factions as well. Now another negative of actually having a guild alliance is that you can easily lose your alliance by breaking it, and you can break it through a couple of ways. You can either do it through guard duty gang mechanics, where your gang has to play specific scenarios. It could be because of tithes or taxations they make in your gang as well that you don't pay them, or whatever the drawbacks may be. Now guard duty is kind of a thing, and the reason why is because guard duty limits the type of scenarios you can play, and ties can cut into your resources, and drawbacks that have some pretty serious implications for your gang. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to balance out the positive as well as the negative effects that this alliance could have in your gang and determine what choice would be the best for you. So when it comes to any guild alliances that you could take within Necromunda, I will pretty much break down those alliances between two categories. We have what's called tactical assets and strategic assets. Tactical assets are game mechanics that affect individuals or combat on the actual battlefield. So these are things that are happening on the tabletop as you're playing your gang. Meanwhile, strategic assets are game mechanics that impact a gang during the course of a campaign. So the kind of things we're talking about are manipulations to points of reputation, to territories, to turfs, also to income in some cases as well, weapons, equipment, that kind of thing. So these things are really impacting in the pre as well as post sequence of the game as well. Now when it comes to the Guild of Iron is actually a pretty fair tactical asset, and the reason why is because its fighters that it provides with its entourage on the battlefield is pretty flexible. And the reason why is because you're pretty much getting up to 5 hive scum that you could use whenever you bring these guys, and with the flexibility, especially when you combine it with other benefits that the guild provides, you can actually quit out those hive scum quite well and actually use it to turn the tide in most cases against your opponents. So that's something you do want to take into account. Another thing that also really thing about the Iron Guild is that the Iron Guild pretty much makes an excellent strategic asset. All right, so it's actually a pretty good alliance to have, whether you're aware of it or not. The hive scum, while they may seem kind of basic on the surface, when you combine it with the benefits that you get from the Iron Guild, is really going to help you out. At the same time, it's also going to help your host game to equip your fighters with better weapons as well as better equipment. Better weapons and better equipment help your gang to net more victories. More victories get you more money therefore gets you better weapons and equipment. It's a vicious cycle that revolves around mass consumerism and death, but this is Necromunda. That's why we're playing this. So because of that, taking the Iron Guild makes an excellent strategic choice in order to do that. So now that we're done talking about the tactical as well as the strategic assets, let's go ahead and move on to the benefits as well as drawbacks. Now, the main benefit of taking on a Iron Guild alliance are guns, guns, guns. The guns, guns, guns special rule is the ultimate expression of shoot and loot. So if you're a big fan of the video game Borderlands, the Borderlands series of games, you're like blowing up bandits and stealing their weaponry, this is the one for you. When you get this guild alliance, you basically subtract 2 points from the rarity of weapon values whenever you go to the trading post. Because of that, you can get more powerful weapons with a higher rarity rating, and you could actually get those easier as well. Not to mention that weapon that you could also purchase as well could also be D3 times 10 credits less than what the actual listed cost is, which could really help you out as well. So because of that, you could drop off 30 credits off the price tag off of weaponry. That's really going to help you out as well. At the same time, of course, you could increase this discount to D3 times 20 credits, but if you do that, you're going to be testing the alliance in order to do that. So more often than not, don't get too greedy, don't test the alliance, just take the up to 30 credits off the price if you want to as well. Now, when it comes to the actual rules as written for the Necromunda rules, when it comes to this game mechanic, it doesn't really say if they're talking about D3 times 10 credits from one weapon or as many weapons from that category as you want. It doesn't really say that. So as an arbitrator, if you plan on using this game mechanic, you might want to discuss it with your your friends so that way they can get it. I let my players take it for whatever the weapon is. So like for example, if he wants to buy a bunch of bolt guns for his gang and it's going to get minus D3 times 10 credits off of it, I'm going to let him. I mean, my friend's taking a guild alliance. That's one of the benefits of doing so. So because of that, guns, guns, guns special rule is an excellent way to build up a very powerful arsenal for your gang to outshoot your enemy. And actually outfight your enemy as well, which is kind of nice. Especially when you combine this with the wandering scum entourage you get from these guys as well. But we'll talk about that a little bit more here in detail in a second. Now, of course, there are some drawbacks with taking on a guild alliance with the Guild of Iron. For example, we did talk about the guard duty and game mechanic. What you do is whenever you get to the scenario where you choose your scenario, you actually roll a d6. If you roll a 1, 2, or 3, your scenario is chosen for you. You end up playing looters, smash and grab, caravan heist, or escort mission where you take on the role of the defender. Now, if you roll a 4 or higher, of course, you can, of course, just go about choosing normal scenarios as usual. So there is a 50-50 chance of getting a bad downside, so that's one of the downsides of taking on a guild alliance. Now, another guild alliance drawback you have with the Guild of Iron is what's known as militia surplus, and pretty much how that rule works is that whenever one of your fighters dies, all their weapons and equipment go to the guild. You don't get to keep them whatsoever. Traditionally, if a member of your gang dies, you get to retain all their weapons and equipment, but the fighter goes away, which means you can give the replacement the weapons and equipment that the previous fighter had. That will be gone if you do that because it automatically goes to the enemy guild. So it could be kind of painful. It could bite you really bad because let's say you have a fighter with a really powerful weapon or equipment that gets taken, you lose that. But at the same time, though, it's a kind of a minor drawback, and the reason why is because of the guns, guns, guns rule that we talked about earlier, and you could actually get powerful weapons easier, so it could be a less of a problem than you would actually think. So like I said before, you gotta look at the positives and the negatives of taking this alliance, and you gotta decide amongst yourself what kind of play you are and how you want to use it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about real quick is the entourage you get from these guys. These guys are called the Wandering Scum is what you get. So I'm going to be honest with you guys, on the surface it seems to be the least impressive of all the guild entourages. What ends up happening is if you take these guys on, you get D3 plus 2 Hive Scum, there we go, that you can go whenever you go into battle. So you basically get up to 5 free Hive Scum every time, which on the surface may not sound that impressive. But let's go and talk about their stats real quick. When it comes to your Hive Scum has a 5-inch movement, 4 plus weapon skill, 4 plus ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness, 1 wound, 4 plus initiative, plus 1 attack. They have 8 leadership, 8 cool, 8 willpower, and 8 intelligence. So pretty mediocre at best. However, the nice thing about this though is that these Hive Scum get 60 credits worth of free weapons and equipment per Hive Scum. That's pretty much what you get to do that. And so because of that, whenever you go about getting your Hive Scum, according to the rules, they can take things up to a rarity value of 7 or below is what they can take. And they can take pistols, close combat weapons, and basic weapons. Now they can't take weapons with the unwieldy trait, but that pretty much counts as 2 weapons as well. Now, here's where the powerful thing comes in with this alliance. It may seem mediocre on the surface to have these guys, but here's the question that I have for you. Does the guns rule account for your Wandering Scum. You do have to purchase up to 60 credits for weapons and equipment for them. Can you use that to buy those weapons? So can you drop those rarity values of weapons that have up to rarity 9 and drop them down to the rarity 7 that they need? Can you take off 30 credits off these weapons and get more weapons for your guys? Now, it's up to your arbitrator whether they want to use it that way or not. For me, though, I think it's a really cool idea that you could equip these Wandering Scum with some pretty powerful weapons. They are serving the Guild of Iron after all. This is literally what they do. So because of that, when my friends take Wandering Scum, when they take on a Guild of Iron alliance in my campaign setting, because I think it's a cool game mechanic, I let my friends do that. Now, of course, if your arbitrator doesn't do so, that's kind of a shame, because I think it would be kind of cool if you did that, but yeah, I can understand the sentiment, in which case, can't really use it too well. But let's say, for example, you do play in a campaign where you can do that. For example, you can get some pretty good weapons and equipment for your Scum to pretty much fill out the gaps in your gang. So for example, if your gang is a primarily close combat oriented gang, you could get a bunch of really good guns for your Wandering Scum, and they could be a nice shooter for that element. Or let's say you're the opposite. Let's say you have a really good shooting game for your gang, but when it comes to close combat, you're not good. So let's say, for example, like you're a Delat gang or a Vansar gang, for example. Well, then, of course, you could equip those same Hive Scum with good close quarter combat weapons in order to protect them and protect your shooters as well. So like I said, it's a really, it may on the surface, it may seem kind of mediocre and kind of bland on the surface, but if you think about it, it's an excellent way to get more boots on the ground. It's also a good way to help balance out your gang, and it's nothing but win. And especially if your arbitrator lets you use the gun rule in your campaign for your Wandering Scum. Alright, so in conclusion, depending on how your arbitrator allows you to use this guild is either one, a lower tier guild alliance, and the reason why it would be considered a lower guild tier alliance is because not much for combat ability available for this guild alliance. It would still have a powerful strategic purpose, but tactically not so great. Now on the flip side of that, just like a normal coin you would, if your arbitrator would allow you to use the guild's positive game mechanics for your guys' hiring Scum, in which case this could become a very powerful higher tiered guild alliance with an excellent strategic ability as well as an excellent combat ability as well. Either way though, it's kind of like, it's either way. It just kind of depends how your arbitrator wants to interpret the rules and how they want to use that for the campaign as well. Now, regardless of which situation you get, it is still an excellent strategic alliance to make because of the hookups you get with your better weapons. So because of that, better weapons equals better firepower, and you can really bring it to your opponents as well. At the same time, drop some serious lead on your enemies. So that's going to do it for this for you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blog.com for all the latest greatest Hive news related to this channel. That's good to do for you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.